Welcome to Behind the Screens with KCRW. I'm Elvis Mitchell, and I am honored to be joined by my guest, Best Leading Actress in a Comedy Emmy nominee, Tracee Ellis Ross.
Hi, Elvis.
How are you?
I'm doing really well. How are you?
Well, I've learned now to never laugh at somebody else's computer glitches because this is what God does to you when you do that. So This is a lesson I want to impart to all the KCRW listeners, none of whom are here for me. But so here's the first thing I want to say to you, and it's something I think that makes you an anomaly and remarkable, is that you have starred in 2 long-running series by Black creators. That's an incredible thing to have. There aren't many people who can boast that kind of thing.
Yeah, it makes me feel really proud. It's also really changed the way I look at the industry and my understanding of what's possible. And it's been also for me just such an honor and a blessing because they're 2 shows that I'm so incredibly proud of. And even looking back on Girlfriends and now 8 years on Blackish, or walking into the 8th season of Blackish, I have such a sense of I don't know, just joy about what we've created. So yes, Black creator, Black writers, Black cast, wonderful.
And also, this is a thing that happens because there have been many episodes of both these shows where the characters aren't waiting for white characters to legitimize or justify their existence, which is and also these are comedies. Usually that kind of thing happens in drama, but there's so much to talk to you about this one because these are really big things to get a chance to play out, aren't they?
Particularly in the landscape of television, absolutely. In the landscape of entertainment and in the way that we've seen the flow of television coming in and out of these waves where I should turn off the chat. I'll get distracted by these lovely comments.
You should, no, don't turn it off because you are going to ask you who's the shirt. But anyway, we'll get to that later.
We'll get to that later. But yeah, in the context of television, if you look at the landscape and the kinds of shows that go for long periods of time, the kinds of shows that get greenlit, the content that is being shared in those shows, I feel really honored to be a part of these 2 long-running television shows, and I feel that they stand up over time, both as comedies that not only are incredibly entertaining, but also enlightening, and that deal with, address, and dive into and unpack a lot of the things that we are all trying to unpack in our culture, even though they're comedies. So, if I were to list like the subject matter of some of our episodes on Blackish, you would go, is that a comedy? Like police brutality, postpartum, Juneteenth.
Juneteenth. Let me help you with this. Juneteenth.
I'm saying too many things at once while reading comments. Juneteenth.
You look good. Let me help you. I'll read the comments for you.
The election. These are things that you wouldn't necessarily think are comedic and hilarious subjects to unpack, but they truly have been, and they've been foundational for us in establishing the DNA of what Blackish really is, as we unpack culture, tradition, race, identity through the lens of this family, the Johnsons.
We can even start with the title. I mean, we could talk about the fact that probably Blackish has done as much to legitimize Juneteenth as anything else. In fact, lots of people can say they hadn't heard of it before Blackish. But the things I would, but it's true. But the thing I would say about both these shows, and it's really, for me, centers on your performance, that they're both shows that are grounded in reality. Mm-hmm. Because so often with Black comedy, it's about taking the outlandish and or the surreal. And there's certainly moments that seem surreal that are grounded in reality. And I wonder if for you, it's something you look for now, because Girlfriends, I think back to that first episode, which sort of like really told us who those characters were, that they were from very different social worlds, that some were agnostic, while others were very Christian. And we can even say it's almost like we're talking about Blackish in a sense, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know that they were consciously, particularly not with Girlfriends, something that I chose, but I also think it's my style of acting and what I bring to a character and how I choose to breathe life into something. It's one of the things about working with Anthony that I find really exciting, special, and fun and wonderful, which is that we both are very comfortable grounding things in the truth of what they are and talking to each other like people, but then we both also can be larger than life. So we can kind of fall in both directions, which I think is the way life feels. You know, some of the saddest, hardest, most uncomfortable, sticky, sharp moments are also some of the funniest. And sometimes that's the human response to those things. What I think is special that you've pointed out that really stands out to me about both of the shows is the fact that these are real people we're portraying, and we are not always given the opportunities to be portrayed in that way in the media. And both of these show creators were conscious and specific about doing that. I remember Mara really being clear about casting different skin tones in all four of us women, making sure that in the character descriptions and who she was building on the page for each of these women did have all different kinds of beliefs to share with the world and show the world that Black women are very diverse and we are not a monolithic type, and that we have all different kinds of feelings, beliefs, experiences, history, desires, dreams, all of those things. And I think we do something similar on Blackish, but in a really different context. We use the generational difference to explore this Black family. And one of the other things I love about both of these shows is we were not people who happen to be Black. We are a family who is Black. So we actually tell our stories through the lens of our Blackness, which I think is a very unique point of view for television, for broadcast television, that I've been really honored to be a part of, because I think we reach more people in a different way than streaming does. We visit people in their homes while they're in bed in that intimate way, while they're at dinner. One of the things I know about Blackish that's really wonderful is people say it all the time. It's the one show that parents can watch with their teenage kids. And like people are like, my kids will not let me, or my child will not let me do anything with them, but we watch Blackish together and we wait. And then one mother said, we get about 15 to 20 minutes of conversation together when the show is done. So it sort of opens up dialogue, which I think is really exciting.
It's funny because one of the things that's interesting to me about the way you work too is that you're very specific physically with characters. I mean, what we get a sense of with Bo is her confidence, because the confidence comes out of optimism, as compared to on Blackish, where in fact, Bo is the kind of person she would want to grow up to be in some ways.
I think Joan, Joan had a lot less faith. Joan didn't really, she was hopeful, but she didn't really believe that life was going to turn out the way she wanted. Also, Joan was very focused on being chosen, and she wasn't in an active space in her life around choosing the life she wanted. She was trying to be something so she could get chosen by a man. An interesting thing to play for 8 years. And I think I had spent a lot of my life after Girlfriends, personally, in a public way, dismantling that idea. Because I find it problematic, and that it's something that we sort of adopt culturally and come by honestly in the system of patriarchy, but I don't believe it. And then Bo, she did kind of grow up to be who I guess Joan wishes she could have been. I don't know. I think they're very different people. But Bo does have she has a lot of trust. She can lean back. She doesn't have to say everything on her mind.
But she does sometimes. And that's the thing. They both are almost in the screwball comedy way can't help but say what they're thinking at the moment they're thinking it, which is for me kind of unites. So there's this thing you get as an actor almost pixelated when there's this rush of dialogue. And we can see your excitement in these characters' excitement.
I do love a lovely run-on monologue. They are my favorite. But my favorite part about Bo, I swear you could edit like a whole thing together. My expressions, I swear to God, there's so much of this. No. I mean, like, it's constant in my response to
Well, what I would say, the other thing too that you do a lot is the wanting to say something, but then you get cut off by somebody, which is for me, is all these words are kind of caught in a dam. So when you finally do get a chance to talk, they can't help but explode. But I want to ask you about this too, because I think there's this thing about, like I was saying about Bo, that physically she seems to be sort of brought up right by this optimism about the world. And this almost willful optimism sometimes, but it's there. And for me, that's the kind of line of separation between the two of them, that Joan wanted to be proved right about the world, but Bo knows she is right about the world.
Bo knows she's right about the world, but I think Bo thinks the world is inherently right. Like, I think Bo, because of being raised on a commune, in a mixed family, she sees a path through everything where it's gonna work. It's okay. Like, it's gonna be okay. We got this, it's gonna be okay. Where Dre is coming from the Pops and Ruby point of view, which is, no, as a Black man in this country, you gotta make it okay. Because this country is not going to support us and see us the way we see ourselves and the way we are. And I think that the juxtaposition of Bo and Dre's point of view is really helpful to unpack a lot of that perspective. It allows, and the generational difference. You know, the truth is that Dre and Bo mostly learn from the kids. Every once in a while, we learn some stuff from Pops and Ruby, but it's so hard to like get it through.
What are you learning from Ruby? Where to hide your gun? I mean,
every once in a while she gives a gem. You know what I mean? And not Jenifer, but like Ruby, every once in a while gives like a really good like. Okay, she's got a point there. Pops too, but it always comes out sort of couched in something really bizarre that you're like, huh? But yeah, I think one of the beauties of the way that each of these, a character-driven comedy, is that I always say it's as if on Blackish we take things that are etched into the wallpaper of our lives that all of us are walking by on a daily basis, and to a certain extent we just assume it's going to be there, like it's part of the wallpaper. Not saying that we appreciate, like, or agree with some of those things on the wallpaper, but it's like it is what it is. But part of what Blackish does is take some of those big topics off the wallpaper, throw them on the floor in the middle of the kitchen, and see how this family kind of trips over it, unpacks it, makes sense of it. Do we decide to put that thing back on the wall? Do we decide that police brutality is something we're just going to be okay with? Or do we continue to do our version as a family of fighting up against it? Or changing it, or making sure the kids are prepared for it, or hearing the stories to put us in context historically about what the generation before us had dealt with, and that, oh, it's not new. Whatever those things are, we kind of unpack together without asking the family to give an answer, but instead to open up the dialogue so that not only can this family talk about it, but then the audience at home also has an opportunity to talk about it, which I think we do really beautifully and makes it really fun 8 seasons in to continue playing in this playground.
Gosh, there's so much to talk to you about as you're saying these things. I find myself thinking, first of all, that you're also in 2 shows. You got to play characters of color who weren't living in straitened circumstances, who were firmly part of the middle or upper middle class, who were of a generation who saw aspirations pay off, but that wasn't the be all end all, because their parents probably told them, if you get these things, you'll be okay. Well, Bella's parents obviously told her she got material things, she wouldn't be okay. But that aside, the idea of it's some kind of achievement should be a marker of, well, you can pass on to the next level. But in fact, that doesn't make your life necessarily better.
Well, it doesn't answer all the problems, you know, and one of the things that originally drew me to this character and that has kept me fulfilled and interested in Bo has been the fact that this is a family and a couple that actually love each other and like each other. Rare that we get to see that in a sitcom, in a half-hour comedy. Usually the comedy in a family comes from the husband and the wife rolling their eyes at each other. And the withholding of love, right? So that was at the core. I mean, that's what, you know, you think of The Honeymooners, you think of all of these sort of classic half-hour shows, and that's what they're based on. They're based on a husband and a wife who are at each other's odds, who don't, you know, to the moon, Alice, or all those kinds of things. But we actually, Dre and I, this beautiful Black couple, actually love and like each other. So at the core, we were able to base it in that. And from that place of thriving, they also are both career people who are doing well in their lives. And that in and of itself, those two things, right? You check those boxes. You've got the good job, you've got a partner that loves you and likes you, and you've made these children that seem to be healthy and generally happy, a little bananas, but you know, we raise them, what are you gonna do? Generally happy. Why is everything not just copacetic? Why does that not make the world stop doing all the things that make no sense? Why is Dre becoming the urban, you know, whatever? Why am I the first doctor that's becoming a partner at the hospital that I work at in this day and age when Obama has been president and da 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 da? You know, and it shows you that the inequities that are built into the fabric of this country are things that we are still trying to work through, which as human beings, we all obviously have been confronted by for the majority of our lives as Black people. You might have been sheltered. I might have been sheltered at the beginning part, but then you wake up as a decently adult person and you go, oh, is this still happening? You know, and although for so many people last year and the racial reckoning and George Floyd's murder was their, to a certain extent, first confrontation with that kind of violence that is still happening in this country, for the majority of Black people, it was not new information. And so I think that's part of what our show unpacks in different ways, in different aspects of how you run into that oppression, violence, limited understanding of who you are in all these different aspects of our lives. And for this family and the kids, whatever that is. And then we also deal with gender politics and all those different, I mean, we deal with such fun stuff. I mean, my favorite episode last season was called Babes in Boyland. And it was such a great episode, but it was so wonderfully subtle, but it was really about, you think it's about the fact that Diane has a fake Instagram account, but instead it's actually about the gender politics of how parents raise boys and girls differently and unconsciously. Like, we come by those things honestly. We live within this system of patriarchy that we've all been swimming in for so long. We don't even realize sometimes the ways that we are doing these things. So anyway, I could talk about this stuff forever because I love it.
Well, thank goodness you're here, because I want to talk to you about it forever. Because there's so many things that you talk about favorite episodes. I was thinking going back a little ways to the episode where your son, basically during one of the talent shows, sort of busts out the N-words. He's doing the Kanye West song, and because you think about that, that's about the commodification of racial politics, and for somebody like you, who for Rainbow, who's in a way kind of, even though she's incredibly confident, constantly asking questions about herself, especially when she's around her parents separately. But together, she's got it figured out. When she's around them separately, and it helps you to have those powerhouse actors playing your parents as well. But I thought about that episode because that's the kind of thing that you think of even nowadays in network comedies, the kind of things that they so desperately want to solve in 28 minutes. And the show didn't.
No, I don't think we solve any of our stuff, honestly, which is evident in Dre and Bo because we are such like fractured, messed up human beings. Loving, kind, but a little bit twisted in our thinking. But I loved that episode for so many reasons because of the way we entered, how sort of innocuous and just like unconscious that moment was. And we think of how many people don't know the history of the N-word, are 11 years old and haven't lived the lives that we have lived or our parents or our grandparents have lived. This has fallen off. Or that our everybody, we must get this right. Hold on. What's happening?
Oh, take a moment.
Oh, no. I'll give it one try and then we're going to take it off. Ha ha! Okay, so young kids haven't been exposed to the history that each of us have experienced, or our parents or whatever, especially around the N-word. And so an episode like that introduces this conversation. And by the way, we also use cartoons and animation so beautifully to give you these, it reminds me of Schoolhouse Rock. Like it gives you these sort of mini history lessons that can come in and give you context. And so often as Black people in this country, we are decontextualized. There's no context for our experience. There's no context for our reactions when there is a big context that extends way before I was born and will be here way after. But so often we're put in these vacuums and there's no context for the things that we are experiencing, going through, having to make sense of. And so we do, I think, and this is not a compliment to me, it's a compliment to our writers and sort of what Kenya established as the DNA of our show. We offer context. We unpack these things and then we give them the history and all of the different pieces, not just the feelings. But Kenya Barris, who is Kenya? Kenya Barris,
the creator of the show.
The creator of the show. And he did a wonderful and incredible job running our show for the first, 4 years?
4 years, yeah.
4 years. And then he left. I think it was after season 4. But anyway, he established an incredible show. He created Blackish. And this was his idea. It's born out of his own personal experience, Anthony's experience, and now it has become something so much. Sorry to that man that I don't know him. I'll apologize to him for you, Sydney. I will let him know that you are sorry you didn't know him, but that you like the show. But yeah, he's incredible, and he's gone on to do other things, and he's a very, very talented human being. But specifically what he created with Blackish and this desire to tell this story by giving it and giving us context is really special and important, particularly again around Juneteenth. I mean, look at that,
No, again, that's something that Blackish is legitimately responsible for, the enlightenment about that phenomenology and what all that means. But you were talking about Bo and Andre as a couple, and a couple of seasons back, we got a little bit of a scare from you guys.
Oh my God, it was so hard. I hated it.
I wanted to ask you, because it's got to be something that's hard to play, because the show is certainly based in reality, even though there's a part of the Black experience that's clearly surreal that it plays up. But that moment was kind of like the guitar bendy tune. Wait a second, that's not a G anymore. What happened?
I mean, first of all, Elvis, we should say, we do pump up the surreal things. Like, I've never seen people better dressed in a kitchen in my life. I've never.
That's because she never cooks. Okay? I'm going to break this to you. There's no steam coming off those pots. You can't have those kinds of clothes.
Listen. I do not. I'm not the one that does the cooking in the family. That is not Bo's role. That is not Bo's job.
One of the many nannies flash you've had over the season.
We've had one nanny, but I don't know how this family eats. I think it's mostly Postmates. But
That's been in a few episodes actually. Because I was going to say on this show there are more shoes on this show. Even the kids have better shoes than that.
Listen to me.
Who's the shoe person on Blackish?
We have an incredible costume designer and beautiful costume department that does, like, I don't even know how they do it with the amount of scenes that we have. But genuinely, I mean, I repeat clothes so much in life, and Bo does not. But that's not the point. We definitely are a TV family who are offering a surreal blah, 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 blah. But in terms of that thing that occurred in our journey as a loving couple, so was that season 5?
5, yeah.
Season 5, at the end of season 5, I directed the first of those 2 episodes. Bo and Dre, yeah, that was very hard. Bo and Dre, and I'll tell you, it was hard because, so Bo and Dre go through a rough patch, which we know in life is a part of a long-term relationship, even short-term relationships. But in long-term relationships, sometimes you have a bad year. Sometimes you have a bad 6 months. It's not like it's just a bad day. And Bo and Dre were going through growing pains as a relationship that's been for a long time. They were starting to not see eye to eye. And the first episode of the possible divorce, I directed it. And it was really tough because one of the things that I think is the anchor of our show, and I enjoy so much, is Bo and Dre always kind of come back together and that lesson gets learned. That growth occurs. However, all the information got gathered during the episode, whether it's through the Council of Idiots at the office or through the kids or through Ruby and Pops or whatever those things are that have been happening, they come back together and did someone say something funny or was it me?
I thought you said something funny. That's why I was laughing.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm listening to you. Please.
Okay, great. No, I didn't know if you were reading because I wasn't reading and I was like, did someone say something funny? So, however, they come back together and they sort of learn, they have this moment, whether it's Dre helping Bo learn something or Bo helping Dre learn something. And in those episodes, it was so challenging because that anchor of our joy with each other was gone. And I was having to direct. So it was just so uncomfortable for both of us. And then we had to have all that fighting and we ended up getting back together and it's so much more joyful to do the other thing. It was also a great experience as an actor because it's so much fun to be able to flip it all on its head and sort of, do the angry stuff and the tears and all of that. They were great and beautiful episodes, but I was happy to get back to the fun stuff.
Because I was wondering as a viewer if that meant that was the next logical evolution of Blackish, because there are always episodes, you said, because as you're saying, it's based in reality, and there are things in reality that are painful, and the show's touched on so many of those things. And I thought, well, as you said, some couples have like extended rough periods, and I just wondered what that was going to mean and how that's going to define the comedy. But I will also say, too, that felt like, again, the next logical step rather than just the network going, well, we got to break these people up because they've been too happy. And part of that comes from the believability of the performance. What you do makes me, and in fact, it made me wonder because, again, I think of her confidence and optimism as being so cemented to the world. She seemed for a while kind of at a loss, kind of free floating. And I wonder how hard that was for you to play.
It was hard. It was hard because it's so uncomfortable. It's so much more comfortable to play somebody who believes it's going to be okay. It's hard to experience. It's hard to feel the experience of you don't know if it's going to be okay. It's like walking on eggshells. Am I the only one in here now?
No,
you're
right.
All of a sudden, it just saw me.
I'm just a voice in your head. That's right. Pink's a good color for you.
Thought so, Elvis. I find it just the same way for me, Tracee, that it's uncomfortable when you don't know the answer, when you don't know where things are going. I mean, it's the reality of life. We all are walking around in this illusion of control. The truth is that it's really quite groundless, whether we want to pretend it isn't or not. But when you have to be confronted by that groundlessness, confronted by the I don't know, where you actually don't know what the next step is supposed to be, it's hard. It's makes your insides feel fluttery. And so that's what it felt like. It felt like that doing those episodes. And also, I have a sense of safety and trust with Anthony as an actor, as my coworker, as my, what do you call it? My dance partner, that all of a sudden somebody who we seamlessly, I don't even have to tell him what dance we're doing. And all of a sudden we're stepping on each other's toes and it hurt, and that was tough to play and to hold.
Because again, I could see it in the way in your bearing. I mean, her shoulders stooped. She wasn't the same person anymore. And again, this is tribute to the performance. I mean, we could see the physical toll that was taking on Bo.
Yeah, they did that one episode so beautifully. Was it the finale that when they actually changed the lighting? Oh my God, when I watched that back, I mean, it felt heart-wrenching when we did it, but when that lighting shift happened, it was like, oh, it did it. Everything felt gray, Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, so this last season's been interesting because it felt like the show's really happening moment by moment in a way that it hasn't before, because the kids are so much older now and there's a level of communication. Because it seemed like there's almost like light speed sometimes between episodes because the kids change so much, but they're now more grown. And I just wonder if it felt to you like the show kind of really found a center in some ways in this last season. And also the relationship with Pops and Ruby from the season before too.
I do think some of the questions, which is why I feel really comfortable with the show coming to an end, some of the questions that were our guiding force have been answered for this couple, and I also feel like they're moving into a different phase in their life. Their kids, we've got one kid about to graduate college. We've got another one who decided not to go to college, who's with a long-term girlfriend. We've got, you know what I mean? Like, the little ones are not little ones, like they are not little ones anymore. So I think some of those things start to put the focus back on Bo and Dre of like, who are they and what do they want from their lives? I think for me, what did really happen, yes, Anthony does owe Marsai a car, by the way. She's not driving yet, though. She's close. Do you know that she's turning 17 this weekend?
She's a member of the PGA, probably. Of course, she's like she's producing movies. I can't even get into movies and she's producing movies.
Listen, that is not the point. The 17 makes my head explode. I mean, Marcus is a man. Anyway, that's not the point. What I was saying that is so wonderful and happened last season for me. So the pandemic really crystallized how much I love my job and how safe I feel there. And I was somebody who was very afraid of the pandemic, very afraid of COVID, and really was locked down. I felt very responsible for the people that I work with. I can't wear a mask when I'm actually acting. So I felt very responsible. All of us did. We made it through 23 episodes successfully without having to shut down. And there was no COVID that was spread within our team and our crew. And we all took it very seriously. We're a family that's been together for a really long time. The majority of our crew is the same. The only crew members we've lost are ones that have moved up. We have, our base camp PA is now writing scripts. I mean, everybody's moved in. One of our clanker, I call it the clanker, but the person who does the
Clapper.
She's now our focus puller. I mean, we have like all these people moving up and around.
You're creating TV shows?
I'm creating TV shows. I have a line of hair products. Anthony's creating TV shows where, Marsai is. So all these things are happening. But at the core of it is a show, a crew, a cast that I really like and enjoy. And we go to work and we do material that is really interesting, that challenges me as an actor, that allows me to continue thinking and putting content out in the world that helps us all become, I think, better people as we expose different versions of who we are as human beings. And I don't think I realized how safe of a space Blackish was, because I was able to go to work. We were one of the first shows back. I think we were like the second show that started work during the pandemic. We went to back at the beginning of August, and we were able to do really good work together safely. And so there was a real sense of landing in that way that I think you see in the work from season 7 that I was really proud of.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of begs the question, because you must have been, as you were saying, of two minds, because at a certain point you would ask yourself, what does happen next? But then to go through a situation where we're all reminded of our mortality.
And how interconnected are, like, that I am just as vulnerable as you are, and your vulnerability becomes my vulnerability. We are that interconnected as human beings, and we're only as strong as the most vulnerable of us. I think those kinds of things really, and I felt so grateful. Like, so many people could not go back to work, but we were able to work. And that, you know, I don't think any of us took that for granted. It felt really important to really honor what we were doing with the respect of doing it safely and doing it in a way that everybody could be safe.
I will say this to you as kind of a closing question, because for me, and I've talked to the friends who feel this way, your show is the kind of thing that sort of kept people's sort of hearts and minds together at a time like that. You know, it's because the thing you were talking about at the very outset, about what network TV does, about its reach, about the way people congregate around it, becomes that kind of that campfire. And I hope you felt that Blackish is one of those things that people came to look forward to, because it offered them some kind of comfort, but also a sense of pleasure, watching the pleasure you get from acting in it.
Yeah, it's wonderful to hear. It was so comforting for me to work, you know, to have some sense of normalcy and with people that I know. And so maybe that got to translate at home. Like, people had been living with us for 6 years already, knew who we were, knew what to expect from the craziness of the Johnson family. And we got to give them a little bit of reality without inundating them with all of the fears they were already having, you know. But for example, the episode, you know, Bo is a doctor, and as we all experienced through this pandemic, even an anesthesiologist got called to the front lines, because anyone who had medical training ended up being needed. So we got to do that episode for Bo when she expressed what so many people were feeling, that fear of like, what, like, just stay in the house. Like, what are you doing? Like, just stay in the house. Like, Bo was like, I'm busy trying to keep my patients safe, trying to keep my family safe. And you're busy sneaking out of the house, Junior, to like go and see your girlfriend. Like, you could be putting so many people in jeopardy. And that was such a, like, you know, we drop in those moments in a way that I think we earn, and I think people receive in the right way. And it's such an honor. It's been such a true joy working on our show, and so much props to our writers and all of our crew. We have the most incredible crew, our camera people, like, just really seriously. And we've been living together for, it's 8 years now. You know, it's the same people. It's amazing.
Well, I have to say this has been my honor, and I would talk to you longer, but I'm about to lose my phone battery. So rather than have it just kind of go, I'm going to jump and congratulate you for the Emmy nomination.
Thank you.
Deserved. I mean, but again, it's such a physical performance, and I'm just thrilled to get a chance to tell you I can see the work you put into it, and I can't thank you enough for doing this. Thank you so much, Tracee.
Thank you for a lovely conversation, Elvis. What a treat. Appreciate your questions and your time. I thank you.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Bye.